Should be working. Okay. Okay, we are, I think we're live. Yeah, it's magic. Yeah. See, now it's streaming on YouTube. You can Facebook. Okay, now I just got to send Michelle the link and we can get this party started. Wow. Okay. Yeah, it's fine. Okay. Okay, now let's put Gmail. Not found. Gmail does not exist. Really? Oh, that's nice. Okay. Yeah, I just got to send Michelle the invitation in this whole totally simple setup that requires no time at all.
Michelle speaks Russian.
Oh, yeah. She speaks Russian. Now I just got to get on Gmail. Okay, Zoom? No. Wait a minute. Gmail. Yeah, she speaks Russian and English. She's just waiting for the link and we can get started. Gmail. Google. Okay. Over here. Okay, now one more password. Oh, I love doing this. Okay, now I just gotta do the TFA. Yeah, sure. Let's do that.
Meanwhile, hello everyone. My name is Maria, and I'm a librarian here, and I'm the co-host of the English Club. For those who don't know him, this is Mark, the original host of the English Club.
Still here.
Yeah, he doesn't come to every meeting, but he's the one that supervises them all. Because for him, nothing will. Well, maybe there will be something, but.
Yeah, something is gonna happen.
But it's he got the original group running some 3 or 4 years ago, and we are still going, which is quite good.
Yeah, no kidding. Despite all of the recent developments. Yeah. Okay. Well, the good news is she got the link. I set everything up, and it was just totally simple. I don't know if she'll be able to see everyone. Okay. Nice. I'm actually getting used to this. So she should be joining us shortly. The only question is, how can I show everyone on the screen? I don't know this. Oh, microphone. The microphone's going to be here. So she'll be able to hear you guys talk, right? Last time we had a bit of a issue, Justin. Perfect. Hey, Michelle.
Everybody?
Can you see us? All right.
I can see you.
Nice.
Hold on.
Let me just maybe... А? Ну тогда не будет видно вас всех. Хотел как бы...
Hello, everybody.
Oh, let me move the mic. What if I move it this way? Just trying to move
I don't know. I see your chest.
If only you were here, this would be so much easier. But
I know.
It's just...
Well, in the future, I'm in Moscow, so I can travel, I think.
Yeah, should be cool. We've got quite a few people. I'm just... Well, I think this is okay. Is this okay?
Yeah, that sounds good.
You can see everyone? You can hear everyone?
I can.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yay.
I'm going to be like in the back or something. Okay.
Okay. Hello, everybody. You all hear me okay? Thanks for coming. And let me tell you, Mark, should I say a few words about who I am?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'm Michelle Berdy. And as I always say, I've lived in Russia longer than you have. I have lived here since 1978, since the Soviet period. Spent some time back at home in the United States. But most of my adult life, I've lived here in Moscow. And I wanted very much to become a translator. And Russian is very hard. And after college, where we read serious 19th century Russian literature, I could, if you put me in a time machine and sent me back to Tolstoy's house in, 1894, I would have been perfectly fine. But I had a very hard time understanding anybody on the street. When people would say "aticho," and I would think, I don't even know what those sounds mean. So I wanted to stay here and practice and learn how to translate. Um, I have worked in nonprofits and I have worked in journalism on and off. I usually do about 10 years in one and then 10 years in the other. But since 2002, you've all gone dark. Is there a reason for that? Okay. Okay. I have been writing a column on Russian language, culture, and translation for the Moscow Times, and I work as the arts editor for the Moscow Times, which I think is probably the best job in the newspaper because I get to go to art shows and concerts and then write about them. Tell me or show me with your hands a little bit about yourselves. How many of you are translators, are interested in translation?
Done it before. Do we have a ball? Can you give us a ball?
I will have to take it. But while I'm doing this, I will have to say that I am interested in translation. Please do not speak about it for about a couple of minutes because I have to go away and then come back.
But she knows it's okay. That's Maria. She's helping us out from the library.
Okay.
I really see her. Yeah. Okay.
So are
yeah.
any of you translators or interested in translation, or are you just English language students right now? Are you translators?
Okay. Found ahead of ball. Somebody, please. Dasha. Are you interested in translation? Yes, no. Okay, so Dasha's interested. I don't know. You can see everyone here, but she's here.
Okay, a few people. And do you all read a lot of newspapers or on internet in English? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what I thought I would talk about today are buzzwords. Now, this is where, okay, I think I can open this up. Okay.
Every participation is now online.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me go here. Is this going to work? Yeah, slideshow. Okay. How's that?
Yeah, that's good.
Is it okay?
The laptop's a little bit in the way. Move it. Almost. I'm trying. Yeah, it's just that laptop's a little bit in the way of this projector screen.
Okay. Well, then we will.
But this is fine. I mean, you can still see the presentation.
Okay, I can see you. Now, if I'll start off and I will start talking about buzzwords. And that's very good. And if you have a question, if I'm speaking too quickly, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, just raise your hand or tell Mark so he will throw the football at me and I'll stop. Okay. Yeah. Now, the first question is, do you guys know what a buzzword is? A buzzword exists, or buzzwords exist in every language. They are something like modные словечки. one of the things that happens to you when you're living in Moscow, suddenly everybody starts using a word and you sort of know the word, but they're using it in a very funny way. An example of a buzzword in Russian for a while was aktualny. You know, you'd go into a hair salon and my stylist would say, "Хочешь сегодня самую актуальную стрижку?" And I like, I have no idea what that means. I know what the words mean, but I'm not putting it together. Basically, it's just современная стрижка. Or you remember the time when everybody said как бы. And again, if you're a foreigner listening to Russian, it doesn't always make a lot of sense because somebody will say, "Он как бы сегодня придет." And you're like, okay, is he coming? Is he not coming? What does that mean? What a buzzword is something that either sounds very important and it sounds very technical, like актуальная стрижка, or for a while it was very modna in Russian to use the English cognate or the Russian cognate of an English word. So people would say not прозрачность or прозрачный business. They would say transparentность business. And that sounds more important and more technical than прозрачность for some reason. Or it's just a phrase that everybody uses all the time. Nobody really knows why it's called a buzzword in English. They believe, etymologists believe that it was at Harvard University that the students used to call the key words in a lecture or in some kind of lesson buzzwords. And there was a game, a counting game, where people used to say buzz. Maybe it came from that. We don't really know. But there's a guy who has written a whole dictionary of buzzwords, but it changes constantly. And it's interesting that he says 1,000 phrases translated from pompous to English, because part of buzzwords, particularly in business, is they are very sort of fancy ways of saying something very simple. Who uses them and why? In business, bosses use them and it makes them sound important. They'll say, we need an exit strategy. Exit strategy sounds very serious. It's a strategy. It's a strategy for exiting. But really what they want to say is, we just have to figure out how to get out of the mess we're in. Sometimes people use them in businesses just because it's a way of saving time. There's an expression, get your ducks in a row, which means to get things in order, do everything that needs to be done. It's easier to say, get your ducks in a row, instead of saying, well, okay, talk to the heads of all the departments, get their input, get all the documents from them, write it up, get approval from your boss. In media, people just use these words, I think, to sound kind of up to date. Lately, the buzzword in English, or one of them, is pivot. To pivot is to turn, like on one foot. But now it's used just in the sense of change. So they'll say, we've covered this subject enough, let's pivot to the elections, instead of saying, let's change our focus to the elections. Now, in marketing, where buzzwords are used more than any other place, it's basically just to make more money. Because you used to say, look, buy this great cheese. It's a wonderful cheese. It's made on a farm. Now they say, buy the artisanal cheese. And artisanal cheese is exactly the same cheese that's made by the farmer on the farm. But now it's used, when we call it artisanal cheese, we can charge more money. Then, because people are lazy, and we all are, you get used to saying the same things, and because people want to sound smart. So I am going to go through about 10 or so new or not so new buzzwords in English and tell you a little bit about how you might recognize them and figure them out yourself. Because we're on Zoom format, if you do me a favor, and as I go along, write down if you could figure it out or if you knew the word ahead of time. Or if you have a question and want me to stop, then just raise your hand because I can see hands. Okay?
Yeah? Всем понятно?
Всем понятно?
Точно? Нет, я solo. Can you please explain in Russian just one more time?
Okay.
Before I can do it.
Okay. Я тоже могу по-русски. Как лучше? Okay. Очень просто. Я буду рассказывать про, ну, не знаю, около 10 вот этих модных словечек. Записывайте или отмечайте для себя, сколько вы могли просто вот сами догадать. Но если вы хотите остановить меня, просто поднимайте руку. Потому что я, вот как на моем экране, я вас вижу, конечно, вы немножко такая темная масса, но увижу, если вы поднимаете руку. Хорошо? Okay. The first one...
Бумага нужна кому-нибудь? Paper? Michelle, should we get some paper and pens? Because we have them.
Sure, if people want to, if they want to practice and see if you can figure out from the examples what these strange words mean.
Okay. Do you want to, I can turn the lights on if you don't want to see the shadow people, if you want to see some real people.
That would be good. Yeah. Or is it, which is better for them to watch and read? Does it matter?
Yeah, then they won't be able to see the screen as well because you're.
Well, then don't worry about it. Yeah, just you can raise your hand.
Yeah,
I will see that.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So we're just gonna get some pens and paper.
Okay.
People do need them. Have you got some? Yes. Okay. Let's just wait for 1 more minute. Michelle, can you tell us what you know about our hungus while we're waiting?
I know you're very far in the north, and it's probably colder there than it is here, although maybe not. And I know you played an incredibly large role in the Великая Отечественная война.
Yeah,
and I think that might be the sum total of everything I know about our hungus.
We need paper, pencils, or something hard to write on.
Поднимите руки, кому нужно, пожалуйста, и Мария может вам даст бумагу и ручку. Никому не надо. Все в телефон. Okay, so
onward.
Okay.
Now, woke. Woke has a standard meaning. He woke up, проснулся, right? But now, or for the last couple of years, it has been a very big buzzword in the United States. Examples. We need to stay angry and stay woke. He's this really woke guy, except about washing dishes. The only companies where your talent can be shared to bring you the highest fulfillment are the companies that are woke like you. Okay, so it's clearly an adjective, and it's clearly, I don't know, you can't even really tell at first if it's like a good thing or a bad thing, because why do you want to be angry and woke? But I think the second one tells you a little bit. Woke means right now to be like woken up to injustice. woken up to the problems of the world, being very progressive politically. So what you find in the second quote is somebody who might be very progressive politically and very aware of injustice, but not very aware of the injustice of the fact that his wife washes the dishes every night. Another word that you all know is to curate, right? Curators, kurator, it's a word in Russian as well. Except lately it's used in contexts other than museums. The bookshop had a nicely curated front table that drew in customers. The restaurant had a beautifully curated menu. We had a brilliantly curated meal, or her wardrobe is carefully curated. Who can guess what that means in buzzword speak? All of them are examples where it's clear if they're not talking about the work of a curator at a museum. Really, any ideas?
I thought it was decorated, but the last sentence doesn't fit.
Say that again?
I thought it could be decorated based on the first sentence, but
I see. Yeah, that's a good thought. Yes, but when you look at the rest of them, it doesn't quite fit. Basically, it's very funny. Here, it's basically the same meaning. To select, that's what a curator does. But for some reason, you no longer say select, you say curate. That is the buzzword of the day. So when you have a curated menu, it just means the chef has very carefully put together or selected dishes to be on the menu. But when you say curate the menu or curate your wardrobe, again, you see it's more up to date and it sounds more important. There's a lot of, there's an element of trying to be part of the kind of in group with all of these buzzwords. The next one is crush it. You know what crush means, right?
What's the Russian word?
Crush.
Oh, yeah.
Давить, там, уничтожить, right? But then you read something like this. She was nervous about giving the speech, but she totally crushed it. Women crushed it at the box office in 2018. Did you see him dance? He crushed it. In BuzzSpeak, to crush it is to do something really well. So she was nervous about giving the speech, but she nailed it. She did a great job. Women crushed it at the box office, meaning women won all the awards, or films made by women had the most people buy tickets for these movies. On the dance floor, he did a terrific job. I have no idea why, but there it is.
I have a question.
Yep.
Isn't it similar to this phrase, kill it?
Kill it, yeah. It's very, yeah, he killed it. Or he nailed it, you can also say. Usually nailed it has the sense of being, got something right.
Да, прямо точку в гвоздь. Да. Exactly.
Okay, shall we go on?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. How about to rock clothing? Ever heard about that? I've given you an example of somebody who is rocking style. You can say she was rocking 6-inch heels and leather pants. He was rocking a pink streak in his hair. Or somebody once told me this, you could totally rock a fur coat, a fur hat. Can you guess what that means? To rock something? Basically, it just means to look really good in something. There's another expression we also use in English to carry off a look. You can say she can really carry off wearing bright pink, but that color would look terrible on me. And the fashionable way now is to say she can really rock hot pink.
Mm-hmm.
Reaching out for some reason drives me absolutely out of my mind. You probably know this in just regular English. Reaching out to someone. Who knows what that means? Да, трогать. Да, when it's physical, it's трогать. Reach out and touch him, something like that. And now it's not physical, but something else. I reached out to him about placing an order, and he said he'd think about it. And then you get letters like this all the time from PR agencies. Thanks for reaching out and answering my query. It's basically kind of,
PR? What's PR? Does anybody know?
It's the same word in Russian.
Is it?
PR.
Okay.
PR, да.
Okay,
PR it, and yes.
I didn't know that. I don't know Russian.
Oh God, yes. PR. Although in Russian, well, for how many of you is if I said something like "Очень хорошо его пиарили," is that positive or is that negative for you? Not sure?
It depends. Well, if we are talking about someone being PR'd, that the implication might be that the person might not be that great themselves, but they are pushed in a very careful manner.
Yeah. In Russian, it has more of that sense than it does in English. In English, you could say they did a good PR job on somebody, and that implies that maybe the person isn't really very worthwhile, but they made him look very good. Reach out is, it just means to contact someone, to write or to call, to ask or to reply. But for some reason, instead of saying, thanks for writing me, thanks for placing an order, thanks for replying to my email, now everybody writes you and says, thanks for reaching out. Again, it's just this odd thing that happens where suddenly everybody is using this one phrase. And you hear that a lot on social media. Another one is move the needle. This year, we're going to really move the needle on our pre-Christmas sales, meaning we're going to move the needle in our sales department. This program will finally move the needle on the problem of malaria. What's move the needle?
Move something.
Move something. Yeah, you're moving something, changing. you're changing something, or you're just increasing something. Again, all of this, you can see there's a kind of silliness about it. They're not saying anything new with these buzzwords in the same way that, you know, transparentность doesn't add anything to прозрачность, and glamourный, which for a while was the big buzzword in Russian, you could say 12 different ways that would be probably clearer. But for some reason, it's the cool thing to say. So we're going to, instead of saying we're going to increase sales, you say we're going to move the needle on sales. Another needle phrase is thread the needle. Right? This, for some reason, is used a lot these days. You're always, like, there's a filmmaker, and he made a movie that was about, from a documentary from a real life situation, but he made it into a fictional film. So he said, you're always trying to thread the needle between honoring the source material and making a movie for a mass audience. Or if I knew something about banking, I'd probably understand this better, but banks have to thread the needle to guide exchange rates and asset prices so that they are in balance. So what do you do when you thread a needle? It's very hard, right? You have to
balance, right?
Yeah, you have to find a balance. You have to find the middle point so that you can put the thread in. And that is really just what it means, to find harmony, to strike a balance, to find the balance between two conflicting ideas. For some reason on news, everybody talks about threading the needle these days. Another one is a fun one. Open the kimono. What's a kimono? You know what a kimono is, right?
Kimono.
Yeah, it's a halat, basically, right? It's a Japanese coat that's like a halat. Netflix should open the kimono and reveal its ratings and demographic figures so that we'll see that girls really do rule. A rule is another kind of slang expression. You know it in the sense of rukovodить, but when you say girls rule, you mean girls are doing the best. They're on top. Or it will say the school board has finally decided to open the kimono and allow outsiders to attend some of their meetings. Can you guess what this one means? I think it's very silly. It's actually a nice, it's a very clear image once you understand it. If you're opening, you're revealing something, right? That's what you do when you open up a kimono or открыть your halat or something like that. So it's used for revealing something that was usually hidden from the public. Another that I also like because of the image is to unring a bell. You ring a bell. How can you unring a bell?
Maybe be silent about things which you need to make it.
Could be. Well, let me show you some examples. Once you've sent the letter, you can't unring the bell. Or a study on attempts to correct false information, that sometimes you can unring the bell.
So basically to undo something.
Yeah, undoing something. Most of the time, you can't unring a bell. A bell makes a sound, and you can't make the sound go away. So the idea is, once you sent the letter, you can't get it back. You can't undo that. But it has this one at least, I think, has a more interesting image to it.
It's like slowly what I did.
Yes, yes. And there's when you read social media, you don't want somebody to call you a snowflake. Tell me what your image of a snowflake is. Снежинка.
So what are snowflakes like? Cold, right?
Uh-huh. What else?
White.
Uh-huh.
Many sided.
Of different shape. Oh.
Yeah.
Somebody
Okay,
said different shapes, and I think that's close to the meaning, probably.
Uh-huh. It
They
changes
all have
shapes. Uh-huh.
Different shapes.
Different shapes. Okay. And what else is a snowflake hard?
Snowflakes, снежинки, да? Они же не твердые, okay. So they're soft, right?
Yeah, they're very soft. A snowflake, you can see this, that little snowflake can't take the truth. You triggered snowflake, meaning a trigger is another sort of fashionable word, meaning does this make you upset, snowflake? We are seeing the rise of snowflake professors. Academics should get a grip. They should pull themselves together. They should stop being upset. Brexit is exciting. Brexit has shown us real adult desire for change. So what do you think this snowflake is?
Weak.
Weak, yeah. It's somebody who is overly sensitive, somebody who thinks that he's very special. And for some reason, in the United States and in the UK, conservatives accuse liberals of being snowflakes, meaning you can't take hard truth. You're too delicate.
Isn't there? Sorry, isn't there? No, I'm not sure how old it is, but there is such an expression as special snowflake, and I thought that you were supposed to say this phrase like with 2 words. Special snowflake.
That you think snowflake is spelled with two words?
No, I mean the expression special snowflake.
Well, essentially a snowflake is somebody who thinks he's special. So it's a bit redundant at this point. But yes, you could say, oh, he thinks he's a special snowflake. But most of the time now it's used to describe somebody who is so sensitive that if you call them a bad name, they get very, very upset. And it is a very strong insult particularly on social media. If somebody calls you a snowflake, whoa, that means they're saying you're not a grown-up. You're like a kid who gets upset when there's criticism.
What's the alternative in Russian? What's the word for that? Snowflake, Russian. Неженка.
Неженка. Ah, that's good. That's good.
Потому что модные люди следят за западной культурой и иногда принимают слова напрямую.
Они могут сказать, ты просто snowflake. Yeah, that's yeah.
The true Russian is
very nice. Okay. Yeah.
Although I have to say that, Snowflake was come up by people who don't know what a real winter is. So maybe if they lived in this part of the world, they would have a different opinion of snowflakes. And then finally, there's something called gridlock. Do you know what gridlock is? Here's an example of it. Can you see that?
Situations and no movement is possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, I think, pretty easy to understand. When the managing editor left, the work in the office was gridlocked, meaning just absolutely nothing happened. It's something usually in the United States, we use it in talking about politicians and politics. When particularly like right now in the US, when the Republicans and the Democrats are really not talking at all, it's like a gridlock, which is why we have the picture that shows Congress, gridlock, no exit, Capitol Hill, one way, do not pass, keep left, keep right. What do you say in Russian when things are stuck like that?
Завязано, как
Завязано.
когда прогресса нет, просто все застряют. Стагнация? Ну, это слишком сложно. Нет. Просто в государстве, допустим, когда не могут согласиться, и все просто повисло. Как это вот по-русски? Коллапс. Может быть, стагнация, может быть, или кризис.
Да, может быть, стагнация, или не могли договориться, нет, не скажешь застряли, да? You could say that какой-то закон по пути там принятия застрял, да?
Ступор, да, ступор. Stupor. Do you know this word, Michelle? Stupor.
Pardon?
Stupor. Do you know this word?
Stupor.
Yeah, that would be good. It's the same like gridlock.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, it fits for the situation.
Yeah, they're stuck there. You could, that's actually interesting because that's a physical. Here, the image is cars, but stupor is an image of physical, not being able to move. Okay, and then this one I just wanted to include because it's so strange. Catch and kill. This was a phrase we learned a lot about when Trump was president. They said the National Enquirer tabloid, it's a tabloid is a желтая газета. It has a practice that they call catch and kill, and they do it for their favorite politicians. And what it is catch and kill, ловить и убить, да? And what it is они ловят скандал, they ловят some kind of compromising information, but then they kill the story. They don't print it. So if, for example, say a young movie star, young woman comes to a newspaper and she says, I had an affair with President Biden and I'll sell you my story for, $100,000. So the company, the newspaper says, okay, great. And they write a contract with her that they have the exclusive rights to the story. And she tells them whatever she tells them about her wild affair with Joe Biden. And then they don't run the story. But since they have the exclusive rights to it, she can't sell the story again. And that is called catch and kill. I think it's very strange. There's another example from an old movie here that's where it's called hush money. Have you heard that expression before? Hush, do you know what to hush is? To hush someone? No, чтобы они... Any ideas? Hush, little baby, don't you cry. There's a song about that. Hush, little baby, don't you cry. Mama's gonna sing you a lullaby. Успокойся. Именно, чтобы вот молчали, чтобы ничего не говорили. And there's an expression, hush money is what you pay for somebody to be quiet and not say something, not tell something. I'm telling you, so now you're getting to know an awful lot of terrible things about life in the United States these days, but what can I say? Okay, and then I'm telling you another one, dark money. What's dark money? What do you think?
Somebody have any ideas? Minimal.
Minimal.
Criminal.
Criminal. It is. Oh, that's interesting. I think maybe it could be. In politics, it's used in a slightly different way. We say dark money is pushing a no Brexit deal, right? The candidate got over $5 million in dark money from a super PAC. PAC is a lobbying group, a kind of lobbying group. So dark money right now is usually when it's money. There was an example of dark money in Russian history. You might be too young to remember this, but do you remember the cardboard box of money that was taken out of the White House at some point? Do you remember that? Помните, когда в 90-х или нет? Да. По-моему, Чубайс вышел с коробкой с деньгами.
Греф.
Да, из Белого дома.
Чубайс, Греф.
Greg, that's right. Anyway, that, and no, it's not clear where the money came from. Dark money is kind of evil money that is not in the light, and you don't know who is paying for something. It could be a criminal group, or it could just be somebody else, but they are hiding their influence.
Have you guys heard темные деньги? Такое есть?
Грязные. We call it грязные. What do you say when you say, somebody got там какой-то кандидат, он получил, не знаю, 5 миллионов или миллиардов там рублей, и непонятно откуда. What would you call that money? Well, anyway, in English, it's dark money. Think about what it would be called, or we'll have to look it up and see what it's called in Russian. And then finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about, you can see that these are difficult to understand. You know the word dark, you know the word money, but you can't really understand or immediately what the phrase means. And so you try to look at examples, and then from those examples, sometimes you can figure it out and sometimes you can't. What I always do you know the trick of putting a phrase in quotation marks when you're searching on, say, Google? Do you do that? Do you know what that does?
Anybody?
Yes.
Yeah?
What is it? catch that, Michelle?
No, I couldn't hear that.
It was not, okay. So when we're trying to, can you say it a little bit louder?
When we're not sure about what's meaning or some examples, we listen.
What it does when you put it in the search engine, like if you put in dark money without quotation marks, sorry, the search engine will give you every phrase that has those two words in it. So it could be after dark, it's hard to see money or whatever. But if you put it in quotation marks, then the search engine only looks for exactly that phrase. So when you're looking for something like crushed it, instead of putting, if you just put that phrase in, it could be, oh, he crushed the, when he drove his car over the cup, he crushed it. Or it was a dark day when we crushed the, I don't know what. Anyway, but if you put it in quotation marks, you'll get the word. For example, pearl clutching. If you can't understand it based on that, often I will look in images and videos because sometimes that makes it very clear. For example, with something like he crushed the dance or something like that, you'll see an image of somebody doing a great job or getting an award, and then you can understand it better. And then there's something called the Google Ngram viewer. Have any of you ever used that?
No.
No? Okay. It's free of charge, and you just you search for Google Ngram viewer. And what it does, this is very useful. I use it a lot when I'm writing my column or when I'm trying to figure out if a word is old-fashioned or if it's a modern word used today. It pulls up a kind of graph, and you just write the phrase and choose the language and hit enter. And what it does is it presents a graph that shows you how often the phrase was used. So with something like pearl clutching, which I did, to see if this was a buzzword, something new, it's pretty clear it's new because Google looks through it. It does it in like 3 seconds. Somehow it looks through all of the books that are in Google, and it shows you how often the word was used from 1800 up until today. And when I did that with pearl clutching, you can see it wasn't used ever, and it only started to be used, it only started to be used about 2010, something like that. And now it is used constantly. So, boy, okay, this is a very good buzzword. And what does pearl clutching mean? Examples. Talking about sex always causes a bit of pearl clutching. Those pearl clutching old prudes gave me dirty looks as I walked by in my low-cut dress. There were many pearl clutching editorials in newspapers about the movie. Everyone at the film festival is clutching their pearls in horror over the explicit sex scenes in the director's new movie. So what's your guess?
What's the word? Sanctimonious.
What?
Basically,
for example, imagine a refined lady who is very proper and very clean and very strict. And when she hears or sees something that she considers vulgar or improper, she does this.
Yeah.
The movement that she brings her palm to someplace between her neck and her chest, and this is the gesture that implies the clutching of a pearly necklace.
Pearly necklace, exactly. I was going to wear my pearls today, but then I thought I would give it away. It's this, and you can see here, right? Oh my goodness. Oh, that's so terrible. But it has the connotation not only of being something that is terrible, but that maybe it's a little bit exaggerated. Oh, that's just so awful. When people pretend to be shocked by something, but it's more fake than real, and they clutch at their pearls. It's a sign of kind of fake outrage, something like that. So you can see how the engram can really help you sometimes. It particularly with trying to figure out something you just can't understand. This helps you understand, okay, I have to, where to look for the answer. I know that this is something that's a modная фраза because it hasn't appeared anywhere in anything up until 10 years ago. And that's what I had. Now it's time for you to ask me some questions. I'm going to stop this and open up this.
There was a question on people?
Yes.
So tell me, you can ask me questions about buzzwords or anything.
Questions. Why don't we, Maria, you can start, maybe throw the ball to somebody. That's what it's for.
Okay. So you can see me, but I'm here. And I have a question about the phrase catch and kill. Isn't there a book about Harvey Weinstein by Ronan Farrow with exactly that name?
Well, catch and kill, there was a very big article by, yeah, there was, but that wasn't a catch and kill article. He didn't kill the information, he used the information.
Right. What I was wondering about whether he was the one, whether this article was the one who started the trend of these buzzwords.
Oh no, catch and kill I think has been going on for I think it's been going on actually for a long time. I think it was called something else. But to be honest, as long as there have been politicians, there have been scandals about politicians. And there have been newspapers or other publications who are on one or the other political side. So sometimes they want to print the scandal and sometimes they want to hide the scandal. But now it's just called catch and kill. It's just bizarre.
Yes, carefully, just
Does anyone want to?
don't just give them the ball.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Motivating the audience. Yeah, we show the audience. Can we just turn the lights off a little bit?
Yeah, because all I see is this beautiful. Hello again, everybody. Hello.
Now you see us.
Amazing.
Have to ask us time for class.
We are not a class, we are a club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not official.
Oh yeah. Luis, I have a question. Why this time? I will find this time possible. Because I have a question I cannot adopt for.
Uh-huh.
Maybe somebody who visited before will ask. I have a question. I cannot adopt. And they listen and thought, so interesting.
He's still considering this. So
He's still thinking.
he would like
Yeah,
to
yeah,
pass the ball
I
to
think,
someone
yeah,
else.
yeah.
Okay, can you give the ball to someone else? Just anybody.
Okay.
There
You can
go.
ask me-
nobody,
you
nobody,
can ask me-
nobody wished to ask questions.
You're very quiet. Tell me, was this very hard for you? Was this all very new?
No, not new. I mean, I'm thinking still now.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Maybe I have a question, but after class, not now.
Okay,
I have a question. I will write on.
okay, you can do that too.
Yeah.
You can do that too.
And nobody said it. Oh, thank you. Somebody to pray.
What are favorite buzzwords?
Oh.
Or maybe what kind of buzzwords do you usually use?
Can you say I can't hear very well.
Just
Can you say that again?
Here, she's over there. You can look closer. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe you can bring the microphone there.
Okay.
Okay,
Oh,
so-
good.
Right, okay.
Hello.
Yes, that's perfect.
What are your favorite buzzwords? Or maybe what kind of buzzwords do you usually use?
I personally that I use? Lately, well, everybody at the Moscow Times office is like 24 years old. So I tend to use more young people buzzwords than I would ordinarily because I'm not a young person. So that's why I will say, oh, that was really dope. Dope is, it's very funny. Do you know what the word dope is in sort of regular slang?
Drugs. It's a type of drugs.
Well, I mean,
That's right. That's one of the reasons.
that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Sure.
I forgot about that. Yeah. He's a dope.
Mhm.
He's a durak. It's usually I think the first meaning is an idiot. The second meaning, you're right, is drugs, usually marijuana, but I'm not sure these days.
Kids now.
Yeah, but kids these days, right? But now it's used to mean great. Oh, the concert was dope. And I would never use that language with anybody my age or with anybody older because they would have no idea what I was talking about. So I tend to use things like that because when I'm with the very young journalists at the Moscow Times. So we'll say, that's where I learned about rocking. You can really rock that look and things like that. I tend to use a lot of that. I do not like, personally, maybe it's because I really consider myself a translator, first of all. And when you translate, the whole point of your work is to get the meaning across. So I don't like using words that make that harder. I don't like a lot. I kind of agree with the guy with the Buzzword dictionary when he said it's, making buzzwords make things very pompous. So I like to use words that I know everybody understands. So I don't use a whole lot of them, I don't think. I'll have to think about that more. But there's some that that for the strangeness of them, I kind of like. I like the image of pearl clutching. I do actually like that expression because I think you get immediately see this image of somebody faking being so upset about something. And that you see from that image of the words pearl clutching, that it's false outrage or a false sense of shock. And that I like.
Do we have anything like that in Russian?
When you're too far from the mic, I don't hear you. Can you say that
sorry,
again?
I'm just asking the others whether we have something like this in Russian, an expression that speaks about fake emotion.
Yeah.
Maybe with the slurs, but I think it's a bit different.
No.
Maybe.
That would be, I can, if you'd like, I can send you the presentation. I mean, and you can think about it. I'm very curious about two things. One is you can think about how you say it in Russian, but also whether or not there are the same kinds of slang or jargon. For example, I don't know, there must be something among journalists for catch and kill here, because there is journalist slang. Things like sleef, things like that are jargon that journalists use. So maybe there is something similar to that.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Who's brave enough to ask a
Oh,
question?
don't be, you don't have to worry. You can ask me about anything. You don't have to just ask me about this. If there's
Yeah.
anything else I can tell you about as you're learning English.
Okay, Michelle, how did you end up in Russia? Tell us the story of your life.
The story of my life. Well, I
We might make a movie out of it later.
I know. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
I really wanted, well, I should say that I am what is called a second generation American, meaning my parents were born in the United States, but none of my grandparents were born in the United States. And all of my grandparents came basically from this part of the world. On my mother's side, I'm Ukrainian, and my grandparents emigrated from the Russian Empire, but that was like 1909. And on my father's side, I'm Lemko. Who has heard of the Lemkos? No, nobody has ever heard of the Lemkos here. The Lemkos are, Zakarpatsky, маленькая Zakarpatskая народность. Там гуцули, бойки и лемки.
I know.
And you've heard of it? Yes, finally, somebody has heard of my
I only know about Gutsuli.
Gutsuli. Yeah, nobody knows about the boyki and the lemki. Although one of my Russian friends, when he heard about this, he said we should put a sign in front of my parents' house. Спасите lemka, 50 штук осталось. Well, there's more than 50 нас, but anyway, they emigrated from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So I grew up in a Slavic household, although my parents did not speak Russian with us. My father grew up speaking Lemko. My mother grew up, even though she was Ukrainian, she grew up speaking Russian. It's kind of a mystery in our family. I think because they were Russian Orthodox and not Uniate. So they were in a Russian community in the States. But I was very curious. They only spoke Russian when they were hiding something from us. So it made Russian very interesting to me. As a child, I wanted to know what they were talking about. So I started studying the language, and then I got interested in the literature, and I really wanted to become a translator. And I didn't really understand what translating was and how you do it, but for some reason, I just thought I really want to do this. And in those years, there was not a very strong academic program for translation in the United States. Most of the translation studies were about translating the Bible, and there was nothing of very little about contemporary translation. And there were only one or two universities where you could get a degree in it. But at that time, the Soviet Union had been translating literature and everything from all the languages of the Soviet Union. And there was a very, very developed school of translation studies here. So I came over to study, and then I wanted to stay longer because I didn't understand anything anyone was saying to me on the street. We all learned very academic Russian. We learned very old-fashioned, correct Russian. And in fact, to give you an idea, there was a woman at my college who was she was called one of the correctors. She didn't teach anymore, but when we wrote our terrible little сочинения, she would correct them. And I would get my paper back, and it had this beautiful old-fashioned writing where she would make the corrections. And the first time I came to Russia was on a student trip in 1975, and we were in Leningrad, and we were taken to Dom Druzhby that was by the Anichkov Bridge. And when I went back, it was in an old mansion. When I came back to the United States, I was meeting with this old teacher, and she asked me what I had seen in Leningrad, and I told her about what we had seen. And then I said, and then we had an evening at this Dom Druzhby, and she got very interested. And she asked me a lot of things. And I said, and there was a performance, and there was a stage. And she said, na vtorom etaje. And she kept asking me very detailed questions. And I said, do you know the building? And she said, yes, it was my home. She was a Белозерская, вот эта двойная фамилия. Белозерская, Белокаменская, забыла. And that was the kind of pre-revolutionary Russian that we were learning. We were, so when you come to Russia, nobody really talks like that. So I wanted to stay longer. And I did. I got a job working for a Soviet publishing house called Agentstvo Pechati Novosti. And there were only about, I don't know, probably less than 10 foreigners. Well, there are probably more because there's Progress also. But there were, I don't know, 20 foreigners who were hired, and I was like one of them. And I stayed until about 1982, got married. Later got divorced, but I was married for a while, and then started coming back in the late 80s. For a while, I had an apartment in New York and an apartment in Moscow. And I was working as an interpreter and a translator for documentary film productions, and then did a lot of producing, both actually for American companies and then even for Russian companies. And then for about 10 years, I got involved in what's basically San Prasvet. It's essentially public relations, PR, but for healthcare. And we worked, didn't go to Arkhangelsk, but I was in Murmansk and Vladivostok and Ukhta, working with doctors on maternal and infant care. Our job was to provide the materials, written materials or films, so that doctors could consult better with their patients. I really actually love that kind of work. It's right now I see a great need for it. How many of you people have had your vaccinations? Have you had Sputnik? How many?
I can. Yeah,
One?
It's one of us.
One. No, it's just amazing. I I do not know a single foreigner in Moscow who has not had the vaccination. We have all been Sputniked. We were in line before Russians were in line. And none of my Russian friends have taken it. So I would say to the Ministry of Health, you need to have a public campaign to make this sound good. You really want people to get vaccinated. It's a very, very important, you have to make people want to do it, not make them do it. You need to work so that they want to do it. And as I say, it is hilarious. I talked to one Russian friend, and she said, мы пошли в какой-то торговый центр, сказали, что бесплатно. Но там была потрясающая дикая очередь, одни иностранцы. So every single foreigner in Russia has had Sputnik. And it is not as popular with Russians as it is with us. And through all of this, I translate a lot. I used to do interpreting, which is устный перевод, both consecutive, and I could even do simultaneous, although I was never trained properly, so it was always exhausting. And I also, because I worked in television and film, I do subtitling, which is a very weird form of translation that's also a lot of fun. And I've translated several books and a lot on art, and a lot of short stories. And I'm working on a translation now of a young writer who writes in Russian, but lives most of the time in Israel. And they're wonderful, funny stories that I really like. And of course, I still work at the Moscow Times, which is about a 100-hour-a-week job. So it takes a lot of time. But I think I'm lucky because I'm not writing about politics or business or anything like that. I cover the arts, and you'll have to tell me about the arts in culture in Arkhangelsk. Right now, I would say in Moscow, it is just booming. There's always something going on. It's very interesting. There is both classical theater and experimental theater, and the art shows are absolutely fabulous. It's a very, very exciting time in culture right now. So I get to write all of the good stories. I get to write all the good news about what's going on in Russia. The other thing, except she's not, no, she's in the wrong place right now. I have a dog named Riley, and she was one of the very first therapy dogs in Russia. She was a broshenka or a потеряшка, and absolutely loves people and is absolutely fearless. And we spent many years, she's almost in retirement now, but going to hospice and детские дома and schools and old folks' homes. Do you know what a собакотерапевт is, right? Have you heard of them? Yeah. She's just one of those dogs who, a huge crowd of people, music, sounds, lights. Most dogs run away. My dog is like, oh boy, this looks like fun. So I do a lot of that too.
Sorry, did you train her to be a therapy dog?
Yes and no. She had to be mostly tested. You have to make sure that like they would pet her, or they would kind of pet her like maybe an older person who couldn't be gentle, or like a little child, where they sort of pound them. They gave her food and then took it back, because sometimes dogs get aggressive. They brought her into a room with a lot of people, with a bunch of people she didn't know, to see how she would respond. And she's just a very calm, relaxed, and she was like, oh boy, this is great. People, I love people. And then I did train her to make sure that she could follow commands really well. But most of the time it was just, you go places. And she was particularly good. I really enjoyed working with kids who had autism and kids who had cerebral palsy. With the kids who had cerebral palsy, they would lie down and they'd start petting her, and they would relax. And their whole bodies, you could tell all of their muscles that had been very tense would just completely relax. Or with kids who had autism, sometimes they have differences in things they don't like to touch. They're very, and they can, I think there is a different way they feel, physically feel things. So if you touch them, sometimes it hurts them, even though you're very gentle. So it was very helpful for them to pet a dog, because it's very soft and they experience pleasure. And Riley she would just lie there. She wasn't completely, we had 2 dogs in our group who we called the sabaki ovishi. They would just lie and you could do anything to them, pull their ears, pull their tongues, and they would just not react at all. She's not quite like that, but she's a very, very relaxed dog. And I think our experience was it made people, it always made them happier. You would come in and people see a dog and they all smile, so that was, I think, I highly recommend therapy dogs. I hope there'll be more of them. And people who are very nervous, they calm down very quickly. Sometimes they use them at airports when people get very irritated, and there'll be like a big golden retriever wandering around, and people just, all the anger just dissipates very quickly.
We could all use a therapy dog.
Yes.
Yeah, please. Another question.
It's very good.
Well, yeah.
А он снимает или не снимает?
Ну, как, там стрим идет. Ладно, берите, спрашивайте.
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Helen, and
Hi, Helen.
And I'd like to ask you 2 questions.
Okay.
So the first one, how many languages do you know? Foreign languages.
Really just one. I know I studied French, and I can read a bit, and when I go there, I can understand simple things. And I studied Czech. And I could, for a while, I could do pretty well, but I haven't used it. Today, though, but when I go places, like when I've been in Ukraine and when I've been in Poland and when I've been in Slovakia, I always think, oh, I can understand everything. And I can't, but I think I can. I also learned a bit of Romanian. I worked in Romania for a while. And that if you know French and you know Russian, you can understand an awful lot of Romanian.
So, and the second one, can you give some advice for people who are eager and who are fond of learning foreign languages? Mm-hmm. So how to learn a foreign language in a proper way? Thank you.
Well, the best way, I think it's two things. And one is very difficult right now. I think two things. One is finding to remember something, I have to see it written. I can hear it 12 times and I'll still forget it. But once I write it down and look at it, then I can remember it. So one of the things when you're learning languages, the first thing to figure out is what you need individually to make it work right. Because if you're studying in a different way, like if you need to see things written and you're going to conversation groups, you're going to have trouble. So I think my first piece of advice is figuring out really what works for you and make sure that you get that. And then beyond that, you know, when I came over here, as I said, I knew the basics of, I knew the grammar. I'd studied Russian through college and I could write, you know, сочинения and all of that in Russian, but it was a very old-fashioned Russian. And I remember just having a headache for like the first 6 months because everything was a challenge to me on the street. I just could not understand what people were saying. And it was a combination of not knowing the words and the colloquial speech. But there were also things where I just didn't understand culturally what to do. You know, stores were, Soviet stores were dreadful. I could never, I would go to the counter and there would be like two shop women chatting. And I would say, извините, пожалуйста, будьте добры, извините, пожалуйста. And they would just pay no attention to me at all. Or they would say, чё хочешь? You know, it's like they couldn't even understand what I was doing there. So it took a while to sort of get used to all of that. Ideally, putting yourself in an environment where people speak English all the time is the best way to do it. Right now, obviously with COVID and everything else, that's very difficult. But depending on how you like to learn, you know, the one thing we do have is the internet. And if you like to learn by reading and you like to see things, you can read anything. And you can find people like me or like Mark or, you know, thousands of us who will be happy to help you if there's something that you just can't make sense of and don't really understand. If you were somebody who likes to learn by hearing it, you know, again, you can watch any movie, you can watch YouTube, there's just tons of information. You can watch news shows. There's lots and lots of places where you can hear that. I think the other thing that I also do believe, having studied other languages as well, you should also be prepared that some days, for some reason, you just won't be able to say a thing or you won't understand anything. And then the next day, you'll be fine again. Language acquisition is not, you know, it's not this straight line at all. It really goes like this. And you will have days where you're watching a movie and you have no idea what they're saying. You just can't understand it. And 2 days later, you'll be fine again. So I think understanding that makes it easier, and you won't lose hope, that this is an impossible task.
Okay, all right. So can you hear me, Michelle? I'm actually in the picture once. Can you hear me? What if I'm over here?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so again, thank you for your time. I think it's been our longest webinar ever. It's been an hour and a half maybe now.
Oh, good.
Yeah, but this was super interesting. So I just want to thank everybody that came. I know it's kind of bouncing around. So thank you guys for coming. Thanks, Michelle.
My
really
pleasure.
To see you here.
I will send the presentation to you so that you can give it to everyone, and maybe spend some time. You can spend some time with it. And if you have any other questions, you know where I am. I can't go anywhere because of COVID. So
nobody can at this point.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So we'll do. If you guys, anything else? You guys want to add anything?
Yeah, may I have your opinion about if I'm going to work for a company and I'm going to pass test, which prefer to choose IELTS or TOEFL test? Only your opinion for a foreign company.
I don't really have a strong opinion. I think it depends on what you want to do in the future. And I'm not quite sure these days which test is better for which, for what you want to do later. I'm not sure about that, but I think I think that's the most important question.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, now I actually thought of another question about the vaccine. Is the Russian vaccine actually effective? Do you have any kind of information on that?
Yes, I believe it is. As I said, you should put me on television. I'm absolutely like we are all the queens and kings of Sputnik down here. Yeah, it's like 92% effective, maybe even more than that. I had it. I had COVID. I had COVID before we knew it was COVID. I was very sick in the autumn of 2019, and it was called atypichная pneumonia, and I was sick for 6 weeks, and the doctors just didn't know what to do with me, and I couldn't breathe, and I was weak, and I had all the classic symptoms. And at the end of last year, so it was about 14 months later, I checked for antitela, and I had a few, but not very many. So I got Sputnik, and I had no reaction, possibly because I still had already had it. So my body was like, "Ой, давай, привет, ребята, заходи, мы уже тут гуляем." I don't know, but I didn't have any reaction at all. And as far as we know, and we have written a lot about this at the newspaper, it really has a very high success rate. And you might get it, but you won't die from it. And you guys are young, so it doesn't seem so dangerous. But if you've ever seen somebody who had this, you really do not want to get this, and you don't want to pass it on to somebody else. So I think the only thing, I think there might be, I think it's safer in Russia or more effective because it's frozen, and they send it frozen. And when you go to get the shot, you have to wait until they unfreeze it. And I think within Russia, that process of keeping it frozen and all of that is very well worked out, organized. So I think it's fine here. And as I said, I do not know a single foreigner in Russia who has not had it. So it's like, and I know people, they also, everybody, let me show, look at this, if I can pull it out. Well, I don't think I can pull it out quickly, but when you get it, you get all, it's stamps, you get your certificate, and they love stamps in Russia. And so when I put on Twitter, I said, okay, I've been Sputniked, and I put a picture with all the stamps. Everybody in the world was like, ooh, we want stamps too. Everybody wanted this. No, it's a very, I feel very confident about it. And I highly recommend it because sooner or later, they're not going to let you on airplanes unless you have it. I mean, I think sooner or later, the entire world is going to have to be vaccinated to go anywhere. So
that sounds about right. So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, guys. So actually, we can. I can put up a link on our social media pages for Michelle to get some more followers. Sure. We're gonna make sure everyone here is vaccinated.
Yes, and then you should really. You'll be much happier. You will feel much more. Well, I think you'll feel much more secure. I don't know. Is there very high levels in Arkhangelsk, or it's not too bad?
It's not anymore. I think I looked up the statistics today. We have 60 something more cases for the region.
So no, that's not
better
bad.
than it used to be, but not yet. We have not yet eliminated it.
Yeah. Well, it's going. It's rising again in Moscow because Moscow just like pretending like COVID doesn't exist, but a very low level of vaccination. Yeah. So.
Actually, the Moscow is pretty strict.
No, I mean I was there and I'm there.
Yeah. Today it's the highest. It's almost, or in general, I think in the country, it's up almost 10,000 new cases today again. I mean, it's rising again. Yeah, it's going back up again. So.
I never end.
Yeah, I know. It's but I do think that whether you want to or not, travel anywhere is just not going to be possible unless you have the vaccine. So, but you can also soon the Novosibirsk one. I have some friends who are waiting for the Novosibirsk one. So you'll have a choice. There's 2 more, I think, coming if you don't like Sputnik.
And Pokemon, collect all the vaccines, all the stamps.
Yeah, I know.
First you take one vaccine and then you boost that vaccine with another one.
Yeah. Actually, there's people are talking about that, and they think we'll probably have to have what we call booster shots. Do you know what a booster shot is?
Yeah.
After it's like a дополнительно. They think probably in a year from now. But as I said, I'm for it.
Yeah, in the US, they're giving out free beer and donuts.
Yeah.
Get vaccinated, so we don't have that yet, but
No,
they also
there were some points in Moscow where they gave out ice cream.
Ice cream.
For the beer. So
Yeah, it was not just ice cream; it was GUM ice cream. It was at GUM they would give you free ice cream, and in 1 or 2 states in the United States, you can have a free lottery ticket only if you've been vaccinated. So, but it's already over half the population of the United States has been vaccinated. So it seems to be working pretty well.
Yeah. Okay, well.
It was a pleasure talking to you. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned a little bit. And I look forward to talking to you folks again.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, let's do that.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So let's keep in touch. Yeah.
Yes.
I'd like to just maybe over the weekend or sometime, we can talk about the program and where it's going.
Sure. My pleasure.
Yeah, would be wonderful. Thank you.
Sounds good. Bye. Пока, 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 пока. Спасибо большое. Пока.
До свидания.